And welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today we have Donna Lakinger, who is the owner of Donna Lakinger Health, a health coaching company focusing on extreme results, not extreme measures. She believes in balance, not restriction. So we're going to learn about this and more in terms of improving your health so you can live a fulfilled life. So let's give a warm welcome to Donna. So Donna, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So how did you get into this world of health and fitness? Because everyone has such a different journey of how they enter the arena.
Yeah, well, it's kind of it has some interesting turns and twists. When I was going to college, I stumbled upon exercise science, which I had never heard about. And it was really interesting to me. So that's what I studied in college with the idea that I would go into working in a hospital, doing cardiac rehab, doing stress testing. I did my internships in that and really loved it. But when I graduated with my master's degree, I found that was a little bit harder to find a job. So right out of college, I kind of just wanted to get a job, and then I figured I would find my way after that. So I actually ended up working, running a fitness program in a retirement community. So it wasn't exactly the path that I had planned. And when I first started, it was okay, I'll do this just for now until, I find what I really want to do. Well, it's been 9 years later, and I'm still running fitness programs in retirement communities. So that's how I first kind of got involved with wanting to, get into the health and wellness field. And then 2 years ago, I got the idea that I really liked what I was doing, but I wanted to do a little bit more. So that's when I got the idea to start my own health coaching company. It was a way to kind of do more, doing it online, being able to reach more people. And it was something that I was really passionate about. So I was just really excited to kind of, have this little project, this little baby that was mine. And it's kind of, taken on different forms over the years. But I just love that it's mine, and I just love helping other people and kind of working with them and having them, fit into their life. What's the best way that they can get healthier? How do I teach them how to eat, how to incorporate more exercise into their life? So while I'm still juggling a couple of different things, my health coaching company has kind of been my baby over all the years. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. I think it's interesting of that journey that you went on, because so many people like yourself, when you go to college, you have this dream of, I'm going to study these things, I'm going to go and get my master's, then on the silver platter, there's going to be this amazing job waiting for you. And unfortunately, it's not even like a red Solo cup.
Yeah, that's exactly like you said. You think you go to college, you get the degree, here's the job, it's the job that you want, and then it's quite an eye-opening experience when you're like, oh, that's not what I had in mind. So, although it took a different turn, I couldn't be happier. As I said, I'm still doing it because I enjoy it. I enjoy doing both things, and I don't regret it at all.
And that's important, that you don't have any regrets and that you're enjoying it. So many people, they're doing things they don't enjoy. So you think about on a Monday, how many people in the world wake up with that notion of, crap, it's Monday. And that sets the entire tone and momentum for the whole week.
It really is. It's so funny. So I know, like, we wake up with that, and we have that feeling sometimes when all of my residents come down for exercise. Our Mondays are the busiest days of the week. Everyone's excited to come down for exercise. And I think once you kind of change your mindset and you get excited for it on Sunday night, you're like, yes, my favorite class is tomorrow. I'm so excited for it. And you don't necessarily dread it. And like you said, set that tone for the week.
And it's something that more people have to do. It's interesting, though, that you're working with the retirement communities, and they're excited about the workouts they have coming up. And you compare this to the masses of what's the difference there? Like, from what you've seen of why they're excited, what do you think it's the reason behind it?
It's very interesting. So I've worked with from teenagers up to 103. I'm seen everything across the board, like I said, in the hospital or just even a fitness center. And I think just after a while, you weed out the things that you don't enjoy and the things that you're doing just because you have to do them. And you start to do the things that you do enjoy. And I think that you can kind of choose what those things are. If you want exercise to be enjoyable, you're going to find a way to make it enjoyable. And that I've seen regardless of how old you are or what your experience is, with exercise or even nutrition. If you don't enjoy something, you're not going to want to do it. None of us wanted to do something like that. So if you can find something that you truly enjoy to do, I mean, there's so many different ways to even just exercise alone. There's so many different things you can do. And I always tell people, if you hate doing that type of exercise, well, don't do it. There's so many other things that you can do. I'm sure you can find at least one thing that you enjoy, and then you're a lot more likely to continue with it.
It's great you say that, because I think of the times, I would go to the gym on almost any morning, and you see different people. You see those that are excited, they're enjoying their workout, but then you see people who are just going through the motions, like, the only reason why I'm doing this is because I want to eat cake later. And that's the only reason why they're there, but they're miserable. And it's not necessarily the best reason to do it. Hopefully it's more than just eating cake.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of us do that just to earn the food, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah, it's the same thing. If you dread running on the treadmill because it bores you to death, well, go do something else. Run outside, take a class, do some biking, lift weights, try, I don't know, something maybe I've never even heard of. There's so many different ways to go out and exercise. And I think that we forget, and we think that the only thing that we can do is we have to go to the gym, and I have to go in the morning, before work or my day starts. And if you're like me, I don't like to exercise in the morning. I would rather do it in the evening. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out, what you feel like you have to do versus what you want to do, and making it convenient for your life.
Exactly. I'm like you. I don't like to necessarily exercise first thing in the morning, and that's just because of the morning routine I have. Also, for me, working from home, it's a social time, so I want to go to the gym when people are happy, they're excited, and they want to talk to each other instead of like, if you look at me wrong, I'm giving you a snarl. Like, whoa.
Yeah, I agree. I would much rather go in the evening, and as we know, that's not true for everybody, but does it really matter? I don't think it does. I think, there's all sorts of always opinions when it comes into the health field, and you say, oh, working out in the first thing in the morning is the best thing, or working out later. But you know what? If you're not going because you dread it, it doesn't really matter what the best thing is. All that matters is that you're consistently going. So if going at night is what works best for you, I say I'm all for it.
Exactly. You have to do something that works for you. And it, just like you said, it never fails. You're going to hear one study after another. People that say working out, get that intense workout first thing in the morning. And then, some people say, oh, do it when before you're going to sleep. So your body's burning more calories throughout the evening. And it's, whatever it comes down to, it's just one simple thing. Whatever works for you, stick with it.
Yes, exactly. There's always going to be so many opinions, when it comes to the health field as far as exercise and nutrition. I mean, every day there's different studies coming out, and then the day after that, it's the exact opposite. So it can be really difficult and hard to know, well, what's the truth? What is good? What is bad? And it can be very hard to, I think, sort through all of that when you're constantly being bombarded by so many opinions. And that's what they are, too, a lot of the time. Are opinions that they're not scientifically proven. It's just, somebody maybe had great results with this and then said this is the best way to do it, but I don't think that's necessarily applying to everybody.
Right. I think that's where the biggest issue comes in, is because there's a lot of people out there who want to take the one size fits all approach that it's cookie cutter. Well, this way worked for me to lose weight, so it has to work for the other, 7.5 billion people on the planet.
Yes, and that's really hard, I think, to kind of come to terms with too. Great for anybody that has been on their own fitness journey and wanting to share that with others. But I think when you get down the road of saying, well, this is the only way, or this is the best way, that's where we get kind of into a little bit of trouble, because that may not be the truth. Maybe the best for you and may work for a lot of people. Well, when you're constantly bombarded with these opposing opinions, it's hard to know what is the truth and what really works too.
So how do you help people figure out what should they be doing? Because I think that's a sticking point. If you look at every fitness magazine, you look at YouTube, you look everywhere, and there's 1,000 different opinions of what someone should do, and that consumers like, so I figure out I should eat healthy and I should do something to be active. And that's about as far as I get because everything else is conflicting.
It is, in it's okay. This week is, we're going high carb, then it's low carb, then it's, it's all about fats right now, and then it's this, and then it's that. And so when you're trying all those different things too, if you are, that also does a lot of stress on your body. So when I'm working with somebody, first I just like to find out more about them. Like I said, what do you like to do? What do you hate to do? What do you like to eat? When do you like to eat? What does your life kind of look like? And then trying to figure out the best plan for that specific person. Because like you said, the one size fits all is very hard, because it really doesn't. What works for one person doesn't work for the other. We've got the morning people, the evening people that maybe do well on a higher carb and a lower fat, and then the exact opposite. So I don't take a one size fits all approach. Obviously, there's always going to be things that overlap that are common. But figuring out, all right, this is what my day looks like. This is what will work. This is how I like to eat. What can I do to make some small changes where I'm going to be able to get to my goal, but I don't need to do a complete overhaul, on my entire life and routine.
So when you say small changes, what do you mean by that? Because it might be a foreign concept to people, but they're used to talking to a trainer and it's like, okay, we are going to change everything in your life, and then that person's going, crap.
Yeah, well, and when you do something like that, I mean, think about like a New Year's resolution. So right when the year starts, you're completely different. You're going to the gym or you're eating differently, but as we know, that doesn't always stick. So it doesn't matter what you change if you're not going to stick with it. So that's why I'm a big fan of just taking small changes, and then once they become a habit, you can build on that. So just for example, let's say, all right, you're really low and you don't really eat a lot of vegetables. So let's just try to incorporate a new vegetable a day. So something as simple as that. Or saying, can we try to get a vegetable in with every meal? Starting with there. Okay, I like vegetables now. It's been 2 or 3 weeks. What else can I do? All right, well, let's look at how much you're eating, maybe versus the what that you're eating. So, using your hand maybe as a guide, how much of that is protein? Or maybe even getting a little bit further as in, what is a protein? What foods fall under that category? What foods fall under the carb category? What foods fall under the fat category? And I know it can be very confusing because some foods kind of can contain 2 or 3, but when you kind of break it down and make it simple and not difficult and say, we'll just have one of these, one of that, and one of that, and all you got to do is kind of look at the portion sizes, that makes it a lot easier than, let's say, trying to follow a strict meal plan where you're saying you need to eat this food with this food. You kind of have that freedom, but as long as you stay within the guidelines, then you're good.
And I think it's great when you put it into that perspective, because when you can use small incremental changes, it becomes doable for someone. If you think about how many people that the idea of eating veggies are like, no. The only veggie that they would eat would be a potato with their steak or something like that.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, I'd say, what I've seen. But when someone is committed and they want to really do well, that's the best time to kind of create these new habits and try new things. So I'll say, okay, go to the store, buy some vegetable that you have never eaten before, or we're going to try this specific one. We're doing spinach this week. I've never made spinach. Okay, well, here's 5 different ways you can do it. See which ways you like the best. And that's kind of, I think, where that can be a lot of fun, because you get to try new things. You're experimenting. You get to find out what you like. Maybe you liked something better raw than cooked, and something else you like better cooked than raw. And it's kind of playing around with those things and introducing new things into your life that makes it fun and exciting. There's no reason for it to be, kind of going along that Monday morning feeling where you're dreading it. There's no reason to make it awful for you, because you're not going to want to do it again. If you make it enjoyable, you'll want to come back and keep doing it and stay consistent with it.
Oh, definitely. And it has to be enjoyable. You think about how many people they're doing things like we're talking about, they don't enjoy it. And when it comes to food, that's why people end up picking all the candies and the cakes, because of how it makes them feel. And if you're going to pick foods like, I know it's healthy for me, but I'm miserable, they're not going to stick with it.
Exactly. And there's, there's nothing wrong with treating yourself now and then. I think when you get very strict and restrictive, that makes you want it even more. But if you know, like, hey, if I do well all week, I know I've got this birthday party on Friday, I'm going to have that and I'm not going to feel guilty. I'm not even going to think twice about it. I'm going to do my normal exercise routine and I'll stay on track. Having one cheat meal, or it doesn't even need to be that cheat. It can just be, hey, this is the food that I'm eating tonight, and I've done well leading up to this. And as long as I stay on track, I have nothing to feel guilty about. This isn't going to throw me completely off track or undo all the good that I've done. So I'm very against it being so restrictive, because all that makes you want to do is have that stuff that you can't have. And then, like you said, you're not going to stick with it.
Right. So what are your thoughts about cheat meals? I think when I see people doing that, like, well, if you change your lifestyle, why would you ever need a cheat meal?
Well, and I think cheat meal can kind of, everybody might have their own description of it. If you are the person that really likes a certain type of food and you're trying to move away from it for whatever, health goals you might have, by giving yourself that here and there, it's not only feeding your body, it's going to be like feeding your soul, because you're going to be focusing so much on the nutrition and the exercise, and you're trying to do well, and you're eating vegetables, but you just keep seeing, that one thing. It's always in your mind, in the back of your mind, I got to have it. If you just have it every now and then it becomes less of like a prize almost. And then, sometimes you get to the point where you're not even craving it anymore. You don't even want it anymore. When you do have it, it doesn't taste as good as you thought, as you remembered that it tasted. If someone's really craving desserts and they've been doing really well and they're like, okay, I'm going to treat myself. It's my birthday. I'm going to have that piece of cake. And then more often than not, I'll hear, it really wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. It was kind of a waste. So it's funny how in our brains, we look at it as this like big treat and reward, and we really build it up in our minds. And then when you have it, it can be a little bit of a letdown, because things are changing, the way you think, the way you act. You're changing all of your behaviors and your habits.
Right. And once you change them, you don't want to go back, because you realize that, I don't really need this after all.
Exactly. And so by making something a habit, it can be very hard, but that's where kind of the small changes come into play. If you make little changes here and there and nothing so drastic that it's a complete overhaul, you get used to doing it, and then you add in another thing, and then you get used to doing that, and before you know it, weeks have gone by, months have gone by, and you don't even think about it anymore. You just kind of naturally do that.
Exactly. And that's what I think people have to look at as a way to make those changes, is that if they spent, let's say, 30 plus years of their life, and they're out of shape, they're overweight, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, oh, I'm going to suddenly just eat vegetables for the next 5 days, and then ta-da, all this extra weight is going to magically melt off. No, this didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to change overnight.
Yeah, that's the other part of the equation, is the patience. I know we like everything instant. I mean, who doesn't? You want that instant gratification. Like you said, oh, if I just eat these vegetables or drink this drink for the next 5 days, I'm going to drop 10 pounds. Well, you might, but chances are the second you go back to eating like a normal person and eating food, it's going to come right back, because you were just flushing out water and not really eating anyway. So instead of this bouncing back and forth and trying all these different things and expecting things to happen overnight or within a week or within a month, why not just kind of scale it back? And instead of having that be kind of like the whole focus of your life, just incorporate these little changes, and then you can go on with the rest of your life. You know, it's not going to affect your work or your daily routine because it's just little things that you're incorporating, and then you'll slowly kind of start to feel better. You know, you'll be sleeping better, you'll be losing weight, or you'll have more energy to get through the day. You can be more productive. You know, if you're really struggling with your own health, it's really hard to help other people. So, you know, either within your business or your family, it's really hard to help others if you can't really help yourself first, or if you are feeling like crap all the time, you don't have the energy to even add on that extra bit to your plate.
Exactly. And I think that a great analogy of it, helping yourself first, is if you think of whenever you get on a plane to go travel somewhere, they're giving you that safety briefing, and they're telling you before you put the mask on someone else to put your own mask on. Because you think, what happens if the plane depressurizes and you're busy trying to get the mask on everyone else? You're going to pass out.
Yeah, that's real. That's a funny comparison, but very, very true. If you're feeling sick, or if you're really tired, or if the stress is just taking so much out of you, you don't have the energy to take it to the next level. And then you start doing just the bare minimum because you just can't do anymore. So if you can take control of your own health, you can help others.
Exactly. And it's so important that people do that. It's just taking the time to realize, what does it take to improve your health without falling into the different fads. So when you're working with people, how is that you determine what foods they should be eating and what should they not be eating? Because that's what I think one of the biggest bits of confusion, that you'll see some people that listen to someone will say, oh, have nothing but high fats. And other people, oh, no, you have a low fat diet, and others, carbs, get rid of them. And people get confused.
It's very confusing. It's so confusing. Every day you're hearing something different, and it just depending on what the fad is. I mean, we've had, Atkins, and now it's keto, and it's just like from rubber banding from one way to the other. So I try to find a middle ground and just really starting simple with like, okay, what's a whole food? What makes it processed? What makes it unprocessed? Are you just buying it from the store? Or is it been made somewhere and it's in a box or a bag? And even just kind of showing examples like that, or explaining even how the grocery store works. Sometimes people get really overwhelmed by the grocery store because, one, they don't know what to buy, or they're so used to buying their regular items that going outside of the norm can be scary. And then it's like overwhelming because you don't know where to start. You're going through the produce section, like, I don't know what half of this stuff is. Where do I even begin? As far as the meats, or just buying things that are on sale that maybe aren't healthy, but you're buying them just because they're on sale. That one I see a lot. Just kind of breaking down to the basics, what is a vegetable, what is a meat, what is a protein, what is a carb, things like that, and breaking it down and making it simple so that when you do go to the store, okay, well, I know to stay away from those aisles because everything that is in that box had to be made somewhere else with stuff added. So that's not really what I'm going for. So I just try to find like a middle of the road. It doesn't necessarily need to be, a super high fat or a super high carb. Even just trying to eat whole healthy foods and looking at the sources of the foods, that right there makes a huge difference. And for most people, when you're trying to change your diet and just eat a little bit healthier, you're not really counting, okay, well, I need this many grams of fat and I need this many grams of carbs. You're not getting into the details of counting your macronutrients. You're just trying to eat a little bit healthier. So even just by starting with changing the sources of these foods can make a huge difference. What types of foods are you eating, and how much portion size are you eating as well?
And that in itself, I think, is what people have to just realize when you're going grocery shopping. Keeping it simple, the simpler the ingredients, the better. And I like to use a simple rule of thumb when it comes to selecting products. if an ingredient looks like something that I might have experimented with in a chemistry class, it's probably not a good idea to eat it.
That's very true. But it's hard when you're so used to buying the same things and you have your go-tos and you have, we're creatures of habit. We go to the store and we buy the same things. And so to lose those items and not have something to replace it with, I think is where we also run into trouble, because then you kind of panic and you're like, oh, just forget it. I'll just get this because I know how to make this and it's easy and it's convenient. So learning about the other foods out there and what good foods are and how to cook them. There's a little bit of a learning curve to it, but that doesn't mean that it's difficult or impossible.
Right. It's just a matter of, like you said, taking the time to start learning what are the things that you like, what do you enjoy, and it also comes to, you think of someone's behavior patterns that they might have spent, their entire life up to a certain point with bad eating habits because they never had a role model to show them. Here's what you should be eating. Here's what you should be doing on a daily basis. They just kind of had to go with whatever. Like, oh, look, there's Twinkies. I want them. Oh, it expires in
It's very
2050.
true,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
And they're cheap and they're convenient and I could just throw them in there. But in the long run, is that really going to help? Even in the short term, what is it doing to your body? Looking at the ingredients, what are you eating? And a lot of times it's like, well, I can't pronounce that. I don't know what that is. And it's just funny how we've gotten to a place where that is food and not real food is the food we go to. You know what I mean?
oh, exactly. I mean, it blows my mind when I'm at a grocery store and I will just, for fun and giggles and grins, and you can insert whatever other word you want in there, look and see what people are putting in their shopping carts. And it's mind boggling. Like, do people not realize what you're doing to your bodies when they're just consuming these things? That some of them, you wonder, is it really food? Like, here's a great example of why people should really think about what they're doing. Look at American cheese. That most of it is listed as a cheese product. That should tell you something.
I know. It's gross.
Yeah. Like, it's not even
Like,
technically
what?
a cheese.
This is a cheese. And it doesn't taste good. If you had that compared to a real slice of cheese, you would taste and feel the difference.
Right. People don't think about what it is they're consuming. Or I think a great one, which it's I don't want to say it's scary, but it is scary if you think about it. The labeling where a brand will say natural ingredient. That's a catch-all. Right? It could mean almost anything.
Oh yeah, all the buzzwords. I mean, just because I think, what did they just change the name of something to natural sweetener?
Right.
And it was still just like, I forget what that was. But it was just another cover up. Like, if you see natural sweetener, I could see, okay, well, it's natural and this must be good for me. It's just, they're making it so hard to eat healthy. And it's frustrating because it shouldn't have to be that hard. And I understand, we eat what we grew up eating and what was available to us and what our habits are. And it can be really overwhelming to try to change something that maybe we've been doing our entire lives. So
Right.
I just try to break it down to the basics, try not to make it very hard, little tiny steps. And I've had a lot of people have success that way. And it's not, I lost 20 pounds in 4 weeks because I did this crash diet. I learned how to change my eating habits, and now I know how to eat for the rest of my life. I don't need to diet anymore because now I know how to eat, and I had the patience to learn what the different foods are and how to eat them and how to cook them. And now I know.
Right. And I think that in itself can solve so many problems if people can simply learn how to eat. And it does involve changing habits, but so many things can be solved. Just a couple simple principles. I just tell myself, other than say going down a particular aisle for like your toiletry items, just stick to the outside of the store. Like, when I go to a grocery store, like essentially everything in my basket, it came straight out of the ground. other than like, okay,
That's a good rule of thumb. Yeah.
there's coconut milk and a few things like that. No,
Yeah.
it's all straight there. I know exactly what's in it. Let's see. It's a strawberry. What other ingredients are in this? Strawberry.
It really is. And it's just, it's just doing the best that you can. I know it can be overwhelming and scary, but like I said before, you buy the same things over and over, but when you change what you're buying, even if you still stick to those habits and you're buying the same things over and over again because that's what you know you like and what you're used to, as long as they're good, healthy foods, who cares?
Right. It's that's the key to it. You don't have to follow every fad diet out in the world because they're constantly changing. You have to look at it as how does your body feel? And I think that's just the one question so many people don't ask themselves. They just assume, well, so celebrities said this is an amazing diet, but what they don't tell you is they feel like crap on it. They look great, but they feel like crap.
Yeah. And it's not sustainable. So why keep trying all these fad diets, which after how many years, like we know, they don't really, they may work in the short term, but they don't work in the long run. So why not try something new, try something different, which unfortunately is even more basic than a fad diet. So it's just kind of funny how the tables have turned and now just trying to eat simple, whole, healthy foods. It's not this crazy new sexy fad diet where if I cut all this off, which it's so funny that that's kind of what people are drawn to now. And that's not necessarily what works.
Right. I don't. What I think of is interesting. This process of making things simple. People just have to grasp that concept that you don't have to have everything being this fancy diet or whatever. You just look at how simple does it have to be. Like if you were to look at, let's say, the dietary habits, if you were to turn back the clock, 150, 200 years, what were people eating consistently? Because
Exactly. What were they eating 200 years ago? What do people, even in other countries, what are they eating? What is their health like? I mean, there's always comparisons of, how America compares to other countries and it's off the charts. And it's like, well, what are they doing differently, that we are? Nutrition is half the equation, exercise is the other half. I mean, I know there's other stuff that goes into it, but just trying to keep it simple and looking at just the foods. I mean, there's so many huge changes that we can make just in there.
right, and I think it's in terms of some aspects where it can be scary if you look at the food choices. If you were to just examine the number of ingredients that are banned in other countries, but they're perfectly allowed here, that should be an eye opener.
Yeah.
Of don't eat those foods.
And like, all I could say is why? Why are they okay here and nowhere else? Why?
Right. Like, there's something like, oh, well, you get an exemption that it's not going to harm you, but the rest of the world goes, no, we're not eating that.
Yeah, that's got to say something. If the rest of the world is saying we don't even allow that in our country to be eaten, what's that saying right there?
Right. That's where you have to educate yourself on what is it that it takes to make smart, healthy decisions when it comes to the food you're eating, because then that's going to drive the ability for you to work out. Because you think about how many times they'll consume just a crap meal, and then when they're working with you, like, oh my gosh, this person has zero energy, and you compare to that person who had foods that were vibrant and full of life, and they're bouncing off the walls.
It's really funny when you say pay attention to how you feel because it really does make a difference. And I think we don't pay much attention because it becomes our norm. You're used to feeling run down and tired and no energy, and this is how I eat, and this is my normal, this is how I feel. But it doesn't need to be that way. When you start to, change the way you're eating and you're fueling yourself, you'll feel the difference. You'll have the energy to go and exercise or add that other thing into your schedule and not feel like, you need to just come home and crash after something. So I think that whole concept of paying attention to how does the food make you feel, I don't think we paid enough attention to that.
No, oh, definitely not at all. Because
Yeah.
you hit it on the head that people have become used to feeling run down. You look at how many people, because of that poor diet, the lack of exercise, they just assume that, oh, your body's supposed to hurt and all these things constantly. Like, no, that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's not the norm. And so, I'm not one to like shame or scold anybody for the way that they live, but if someone's miserable and looking for a change, it can be something as just very simple as changing a couple of things that they're eating and building from that.
Right. I mean, the scariest thing, or I don't want to say the saddest thing I've seen some people do is where you'll watch people say, "Oh, no, I need to lose weight. I need to make smarter choices," with the foods I'm eating. Yet they're eating ice cream. I'm like, yeah. So about making smarter choices.
But it can be very hard to break out of old habits, and if that's your go-to, and if you don't have something to if you don't have a new habit to substitute the old habit, then you don't know what to turn to, and you'll always go back to the old habit.
So how do you help people change that habit? Because for some people, that's so hard where they're like, but this is the only way I've known. Like they ate this one
Yeah.
meal since they were like two and decades later they're still eating it.
I know it can be very hard, with working with someone that maybe has been eating this way either their entire life or at least their entire adult life. They are stuck on the one path, and you kind of have to show them that there's so much more out them. And like I was saying before, it's kind of like one thing at a time, one small thing at a time. If I dumped all the knowledge on them within our first week, which is sometimes what they want. They're like, okay, well, what comes next? What's after this? And I'm like, all right, just chill out. We're going to get there. If I give you everything right now, it's going to be overwhelming and you'll forget it all in a week anyways. So by going week by week and introducing, different concepts, different foods, how to incorporate more exercise into your life, making small changes, they'll stick instead of trying to say, okay, throw out all of this stuff. You're only allowed to buy this and this is what you're going to eat. That probably isn't going to last longer than a couple of weeks. So just by changing one habit at a time, you can only focus on one thing at a time to really give it your true 100% focus. So instead of trying to change 5 things all at once and kind of giving it a little attention here, a little attention there, just focusing on one thing at a time and then moving on to the next thing when the first thing kind of becomes more natural to you.
Oh, that's excellent because that's what people need to do more of is create that focus. How do you start eating more vegetables? How do you start exercising on a regular basis? How do you start drinking more water? And it's an ongoing process that if you try to do too much at once, it's of course it's going to be hard because you're throwing your body into total chaos. But once you
Yeah, and it's hard to keep up too.
oh yeah. But and some of my friends will ask me, "How in the world do you eat healthy and you do all this stuff? So make it look easy." Like it's simple. I just did one thing after a time. Like okay, no more soda. That was cut out, so now I just drink water all the time. People are shocked at that. Like, and then in terms of
Hmm.
like other things, like, but you don't eat like cakes and things like that. Like, no, I don't have the need for it. Like, if I want something sweet, I'll have a bowl of fruit. So
Hmm.
you start
And it's
you
funny how
shift
they
that.
build upon each other too.
Right. And people would ask me, don't you miss like having a piece of cake? Like, no, because I know exactly what will happen if I have one. It's like, oh, this is sweet, but I guarantee you within an hour to hour and a half afterwards, I'm going to be passed out on the couch taking a nap.
Yes, very true. And that's so tricky too when you're like, do I have to cut out all of these things? I can never have them again just because I want to lose weight. And it doesn't necessarily need to go so far. Of course, it's always our choice if you learn like, hey, I don't eat those things, I don't like those things. But for somebody that's been eating like that their entire life, saying like, no, you can't have it anymore, that's enough to say, oh, I'm throwing in the towel if I can't have that. So it is like little things like, okay, there was a pizza party. Instead of having half the pizza, maybe we try just a couple pieces and then you fill the other half with salad. So it's just, like I said, for making it convenient for your life and making little changes, they really do all add up and they'll make a difference in the end when they all start to build upon each other and add together. When you're doing well most of the time, then every now and then when you have a treat, it's not the end of the world.
Exactly. That's what it boils down to is when you make something a treat and you reward yourself, but the key is you give yourself something that you really want that you're not going to feel bad about. Because I think that's where people they fall apart is they have that cheat meal like, oh, I feel awful. Why did I have this? Well, why did you do that? Make it something as a reward where you're excited, like, it's a meal that you enjoy but you feel great about, but the only time you get to have it is, if you do all these other things. Let's see, there's a restaurant you love going to where they make this one really amazing dish. Well, that can be your reward instead.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't even always need to be treated as a reward too, because then you get into the cycle of, okay, well, I'm only eating this way so that I can have, that dish at the end of the week. But by allowing yourself to have it, and like you said, looking at how you feel after eating these foods, you really do begin to notice, what is your energy like you said, you'll crash an hour after having that cake, but just kind of trying to incorporate it little by little into your life and not making it such like just a huge drastic thing. It doesn't need to be so hard. It can honestly be simple.
Right, exactly. It doesn't have to be anything complicated or crazy. So as we begin wrapping up things here, what's one thing you recommend people do so they can start improving their health?
I would say look at your day, look at your routine, and pick, 1 to 2, maybe 3 small little things. Okay, if I did this instead of that, would this make an impact? So whether that's, all right, well, I usually have toast for breakfast. All right, well, maybe we can take away one piece of toast and add in an egg or something tiny like that. Or instead of, I always take the elevator to the 10th floor every day, I'm going to take the stairs halfway, starting out like that. Or I'm going to take the stairs all the way, or parking a little bit further. Trying to add in just little tiny changes in your already routine. They will start to add up, and then they roll into new habits, and they roll into new little things. And then before you know it, you've changed so much without even realizing it.
Right. And that is a great way to do it. It's just little small actions consistently add up. Before you know it, you go from having a completely unhealthy diet to one that you truly love consuming every day.
Yeah, it's little changes, and they really do add up.
Oh, that they do. So how can people learn more and reach out to you?
So I put everything on my business Facebook page. It's just Donna Lakinger Health. All of my latest programs and updates and news, everything goes right on there. You can message me directly from that page as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Donna, I want to thank you once again for coming onto the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Oh, you're welcome.